In the first scene we see Mary of Elnor, a deaf-mute girl, accused of witchcraft and subjected to the Inquisition. Her ashes and spirit were enclosed in a doll. The events then shift to modern-day Boston, Massachusetts. A hapless journalist, Jerry Fenn, is in search of supernatural stories. This leads him to Banfield. A local farmer claims occultists are disturbing his livestock. However, Jerry, experienced in such matters, immediately realized that there was nothing criminal here. It's just another of his failures. The local priest, Father Hagen, is unhappy about the livestock constantly wandering onto church grounds. The farmer assured that this would not happen again. As Jerry was leaving, he heard a strange whisper coming from the direction of the forest. However, the farmer heard nothing. Jerry approached the old tree where Mary of Elnor had been subjected to the Inquisition in the 19th century. Inside he found a ritual doll. Interestingly, the doll bore the date February 31st. Jerry smashed the doll, intending to link it to the mysterious scratches on the cows. And let the article be fake, Jerry couldn't afford to come back with nothing, as the newspaper wouldn't pay him. The farmer agreed to be photographed for the article. Later, after grabbing a bite at a local diner, Jerry was about to leave town at night. He was driving drunk. At some point Jerry got distracted, and when looked at the road again, a girl appeared there. Jerry abruptly hit the brakes and veered off the road. Getting out of the car, he felt someone scurry by. Jerry followed the girl into the woods. She came to the same old tree and was whispering something. Next to her in the mist, a ghostly figure appeared. Jerry approached the girl, who continued talking to someone. When Jerry touched her shoulder, she passed out. This girl's name is Alice. She's the niece of the local priest. When Jerry brought her home, concerned William Hagen immediately called a doctor. It turns out the girl is deaf-mute. The doctor, proficient in sign language, assured that Alice was okay. Perhaps she sleepwalks. Later, Dr. Natalie Gates told Jerry that Alice had lost her parents long ago. William raised her as his own daughter. Jerry claimed he heard Alice talking, but of course Natalie didn't believe him. Firstly, Alice suffers from a congenital condition, and secondly, Jerry was clearly drunk. Despite her displeasure, Natalie offered to drive Jerry to the only motel in town. Jerry wasn't keen on staying here, but with no other choice and his car broken down, he had to. The next morning in the church, Alice gazed in awe at the statue of the Virgin Mary. Jerry called Max and told him that the article would be delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. However, it turned out Jerry had been preempted. Someone else had released an article about the cows. Jerry thought that the deaf-mute girl who suddenly started speaking would make a good story, especially since religious themes appeal to readers. Jerry attended the morning service at the church. Father Hagen was preaching. Unexpectedly, Alice heard someone calling her. Jerry was watching her closely. As if hypnotized, Alice went to the call. This attracted the attention of the parishioners. Everyone exited the church, following Alice, who saw the face of the Virgin Mary in front of her. Apparently this tree was sacred. Suddenly Alice announced that she could hear the Virgin Mary. Everyone was shocked as the deaf-mute girl found her voice and hearing. According to Alice, the Virgin Mary wants all of them to come back here tomorrow. The priest couldn't contain his awe. Dr. Gates tested Alice's hearing. It seems the girl has made a full recovery. Jerry took many photographs, preparing to release sensational material. He called Monica Slade, the chief editor, and said he had something interesting. But Monica doesn't want to deal with Jerry anymore because he fabricated his articles before and nearly ruined the publication's reputation. At night, Jerry was haunted by nightmares of that doll and the entity emerging from the river. Waking up, Jerry noticed that the ceiling was leaking. The next morning, many people gathered near the church. They hope that the Virgin Mary will heal them too. Father Hagen announced that today Alice will stay home because she needs rest. But against the will of her foster father, the girl went out and headed to the tree, touching it. Seeing the visage of the Virgin Mary, Alice smiled and thanked her. After that, Alice approached the boy in the wheelchair and asked him if he believed in the Virgin Mary. When Toby Walsh answered yes, Alice said that Mary commands him to get up. To the astonishment of the people, Toby stood up from the wheelchair and was able to walk. If this isn't a miracle, then what is? The boy's mother tearfully thanked Mary. People began to pray in unison. But did the Virgin Mary really perform this miracle? This incident caused a sensation in the press. It was on the news. Jerry attended a conference where Bishop Giles spoke about people to whom the Virgin Mary appeared, much like Alice. The places where this happened became pilgrimage sites. If it's confirmed that Alice really talks to the Virgin Mary, Banfield could become one too. Therefore, Monsignor Delgarde, on behalf of the Vatican, will conduct an investigation. He intends to use all medical advancements to either confirm the miraculous healing or expose deception. Alice agreed to give an interview because the Virgin Mary wants it. The girl was surrounded by dozens of journalists, making her confused. When asked what the Virgin Mary looked like, Alice smiled and said she was dressed in radiant white robes. Jerry personally spoke with Bishop Giles and Monsignor Delgarde. They all wonder how Alice can speak so clearly if she's never heard human speech. Jerry wants access to exclusive material on the grounds that as a non-religious person, he will be in the public eye and unbiased party. Despite Mr. Fenn's bad reputation, the clergy agreed to cooperate because everyone deserves a second chance. Meanwhile, Father Hagen has a bad feeling. A tent was erected over the tree so that bad weather would not interfere with the church's investigation. Hagen senses the presence of otherworldly forces, and it's not the Virgin Mary. At one point, he noticed a broken doll on the ground. When he picked it up, a sinister entity appeared near the tree. Someone entered the tent, and the entity instantly disappeared. Hagen didn't see it. Jerry is going to interview Alice. The girl is happy to listen to music and enjoys country genre. Jerry set up the camera. Alice said that Mary wants as many people as possible to hear her. When Jerry asked Alice why Mary chose her specifically, the girl replied that for many years she had been praying. And the day came when Mary heard her prayers. Sincere faith can accomplish even the most incredible miracle. Alice started telling things about Jerry that she had no way of knowing. Supposedly Mary revealed it to her. The interview was interrupted by Father Hagen, who wanted to speak with the journalist privately. The priest doesn't hide his displeasure, believing Jerry is simply using Alice for fame. Suddenly the priest began to cough hoarsely. Jerry guessed that Hagen had emphysema. Jerry's grandmother also suffered from it. Despite his illness, Hagen smokes. Jerry tried to persuade the priest that if Alice tells the world about the miracle, it will benefit everyone. Hagen agrees it will benefit Banfield, but not Alice herself. Where God appears, the devil is sure to follow. Late in the evening, Jerry returned to the motel and studied Banfield's history. Apparently, strange things have been happening here throughout its history. In the morning in the church, Monsignor Delgarde listened to Alice's beautiful singing. Jerry was also present and felt Delgarde's skepticism. Since entering the seminary at 19, Delgarde has exposed more than one false miracle. When Delgarde, knowing of Jerry's past and his penchant for lying, sarcastically offered him a confession, he of course refused. Hagen couldn't hold back tears of joy, for he was so proud of his niece. Suddenly he was overcome by a severe coughing fit. This time the attack was much more serious. Alice ran to her foster father and asked if he believed in the Virgin Mary. Delgarde watched in astonishment, while Jerry called an ambulance. But the ambulance wasn't needed because Alice, using the power of the Virgin Mary, healed the priest. He could breathe again and had no doubt it was a real miracle. But at some point, Hagen noticed a dark entity behind Alice. After examining Hagen's x-rays, Dr. Gates confirmed that his illness had completely disappeared, even though he wasn't supposed to live more than 6 months. The same boy, Toby Walsh, who had suffered from total muscular dystrophy since birth, also recovered. It was beyond comprehension. Thus the miracle was recognized as true. The Pope declared the field where the Virgin Mary appeared a sanctuary. People around the world considered Alice a saint. However, there were those who were frightened by what was happening. Some believed that if God descends to earth, it is a harbinger of the apocalypse, such as the Great Flood. Banfield's economy began to prosper. Early in the morning, Jerry received a call from Monica, who offered to resume their collaboration. However, Jerry was ready to agree to this only on the condition that he be made editor. Currently he is the only journalist with access to Alice, so he can dictate his terms. At the insistence of her uncle, Alice plans to move to the diocese. The girl is not thrilled about this, but she understands that the foster father is concerned about her. As a gesture of support, Jerry recorded his favorite songs for Alice on a disc. Alice sincerely thanked him. It was thanks to Jerry that the whole world learned about the appearance of the Virgin Mary. Hagen never quit his destructive habit and continues to smoke. Suddenly he heard an otherworldly voice and found some book in the church walls. That's how the priest learned about what happened here in 1845. Perhaps the spirit of Mary of Elnor is still here. Natalie began to feel better about Jerry. She's curious why he fabricated articles in the past. Jerry doesn't hide that he did it for fame. People's attention is what he lives for. When the conversation turned to Banfield again and Jerry mentioned the doll with the non-existent date, Natalie said that in the past, non-existent dates were used for a ritual to seal an evil spirit into an object. Later, they were walking and chatting. Natalie mentioned that Toby Walsh was taken into the school football team. At some point, Jerry recognized a place from his nightmare. He feels like all these nightmares are gradually becoming reality. Something clearly happened here long ago, related to the church. Some woman came to Father Hagen for confession. He was too tired and barely listened to her. But at some point, the woman's voice began to reproach Hagen for repaying her with doubt for her healing. Whoever this entity was, it would stop at nothing to seek revenge on people because it was empowered by the devil himself. When Hagen came out of the confession room, he saw an eerie figure before him. The priest tried to escape, but unknown forces prevented him from leaving. Jerry came to the church to talk to Hagen about the events of the year 1845. But Jerry found the priest lifeless. It looked as if Father Hagen had voluntarily passed away. Bishop Giles wants Jerry to keep quiet about it, or else people might think that behind the miracles happening in Banfield, there are demonic forces, not divine ones. Alice grieved greatly for the uncle, who had replaced her father, but despite everything she was ready to continue her sacred mission. When Jerry asked if it could be possible that these miracles were not performed by the Virgin Mary but by someone else, Alice vehemently objected, warning Jerry that if he doubts the faith, hell awaits him. Returning to the motel, Jerry felt a strange presence nearby. The news continued to report cases of miraculous healings in Banfield, but Jerry didn't want to hear about it anymore. While reviewing the latest interview with Alice, he noticed something strange on the video. It seemed that something supernatural was always present next to Alice. The next morning, Jerry asked Natalie to show him the church records. While William Hagen's funeral was going on, Jerry and Natalie found the records for the right year. Natalie, being a doctor, knows a little Latin. These records were dedicated to Mary of Elnor, who had the ability to heal people, but the source of her power was not God but the devil. Moreover, a terrible fate awaited all her enemies. The church recognized Mary as a witch and subjected her to the Inquisition. During the funeral, Alice heard the call of Mary again and announced it to everyone present. Natalie read that after the demise of Mary of Elnor, all her miracles dissipated. The diseases returned to those she had previously healed. Jerry suspected that Hagen had found this book and learned the truth, so Mary of Elnor decided to get rid of him. Now Mary of Elnor pretends to be the Virgin Mary to bring the devil into this world. Suddenly Jerry felt a foreign presence again. It was because of him that the spirit of Mary of Elnor broke free from the doll. Natalie and Jerry were about to urgently warn Alice about this. Right now, Banfield is in the spotlight because of this sensational story. On the way, Jerry received a call from Monica, who said she agreed to all his terms. But it didn't matter to Jerry anymore. He used to be willing to do anything for a sensational story, but from now on he will act according to his conscience. Jerry told Giles and Delgarde about his speculation. Giles was initially aware of what happened to Mary of Elnor. All records are kept in the archives of the diocese. Giles doesn't believe that it was Mary of Elnor who took Father Hagen's life. Neither Jerry nor Natalie were allowed to talk to Alice, but the journalist gained access to the diocese archives and learned that Mary of Elnor was pregnant before the Inquisition. Also, according to the records, Alice is a descendant of Mary. That's why the entity chose her. Sinister things started happening around Jerry again. Mary is haunting him everywhere. The entity was about to attack him, but Delgarde, holding a cross, recited a prayer and banished the evil spirit. But there is no doubt, Mary will return soon. Now Delgarde knows for sure that Jerry was right. Today Alice is preparing to conduct a mass service in honor of Mary. Thousands of people will pray, fueling the evil spirit with their faith. Bishop Giles ordered security not to let Jerry in. Meanwhile, Delgarde, Jerry and Natalie were preparing to perform a ritual and trap Mary's spirit in a doll. The townsfolk gathered under the tent near the sacred tree. Alice heard Mary's call again, saying it was time to begin. Many people watched the service online. The bishop recited the opening prayer. Jerry feels guilty for releasing Mary's spirit. Natalie didn't know about this before, but Delgarde believes that Jerry can still earn his redemption. They began the ritual, but the demon tried to interfere in every way. Suddenly the church cross lit up and fell directly on Delgarde, taking his life. Jerry and Natalie ran out of the church. They planned to undermine people's faith in Mary, thereby depriving her of power. Meanwhile, Alice urged people to pray to Mary and let her into their hearts. People prayed and pledged allegiance to Mary from Banfield. Suddenly Jerry appeared, announcing that it was all a lie and that he faked all the miracles. Natalie in turn tried to convey to Alice that Mary was deceiving her. Jerry continued to claim that he fabricated the entire miracle story. Alice's healing was supposedly a coincidence, and all the other miracles were just a placebo effect. Even more shocking for the people was hearing that Father Hagen actually passed away not from natural causes, and it happened right in the church. Giles denied everything, while Natalie, using sign language, urged Alice to fight against Mary. Jerry was willing to sacrifice his reputation for the greater good. The crowd's outrage knew no bounds. Mary ordered Alice to continue praying so that all these people would hand over their souls to her, otherwise Alice would never be able to speak again. However, despite this, the girl confirmed Jerry's words that the story with the Virgin Mary was a fabrication. Suddenly the sanctuary burst into flames. People began to panic and run out of the tent. Only Giles stood rooted to the spot, watching as the sinister entity emerged from the fire. Mary of Elnor took Giles's life, and no prayers could save him. Jerry and Alice were supposed to be next, but the girl shielded wounded Jerry with her body. Her faith was so strong that the entity turned to ashes and dissipated. Jerry tearfully begged Alice to wake up. He didn't know how to pray, so he was just speaking to God from the heart. Jerry just wanted Alice to come back to life. Fortunately, God heard his prayers. Now Alice was deaf-mute again, but at least she was free. Some time later, Jerry returned to Banfield. The burned tree served as a reminder of those horrible events. Jerry, Alice and Natalie visited William Hagen's grave. By the way, Jerry had studied sign language a little to be able to communicate with Alice. Jerry's journalistic career was finally ruined, but now it wasn't so important to him.